Oh my God. The words, a raw, ragged, and utterly terrified gasp, sliced through the heavy, oppressive silence of the mansion like a shard of shattering glass. The door to the nursery, a room that was supposed to be a sanctuary of innocence and peace, swung wide open. And in that single, terrible, heart-stopping moment, her world, a world she had only just begun to navigate, stopped. 1-year-old James, the precious, beautiful, and very lonely baby of the house, lay sprawled on the dark, polished hardwood floor. His tiny head was bleeding, a small but shockingly bright crimson pool already beginning to form beneath him. The rail of his expensive custom-made crib was still latched. He must have climbed and fallen. The baby was unconscious. Evelyn, the new maid, dropped to her knees. Her own world, her own carefully constructed composure, shattering into a million irreparable pieces. But the room was filled with something else. Not just fear, not just the metallic, coppery scent of blood. It was the stench of heroin. What happens when a simple act of a desperate 911 call unravels a dark and very dangerous secret at the heart of one of the city's most powerful families? And what will a ruthless billionaire do when he discovers that the only person he can trust is the one person he never even bothered to see? Stay with us for an incredible story of courage, of betrayal, and of an unlikely and very beautiful bond, forged in the fires of a terrible and very personal tragedy. Tears streaked down her cheeks as she gently, and with a surprising innate tenderness, cradled the small, limp boy, whispering over and over and over again. It's like a mantra, like a prayer. You're okay, baby. You're okay. Help is coming. Evelyn's eyes, wide with a new, dawning horror, shot to the large, canopied bed across the room. The baby's mother, the beautiful and very tragic Genevieve Langston, lay twisted in the expensive silk sheets, motionless, her own lips slightly parted, her arm hanging limp over the side of the bed, a single, discarded needle still within her reach. Her breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible, but she was alive. Evelyn's sob, a sound of pure, unadulterated grief for the small, broken child in her arms, now turned into a new and very different kind of sound, was the sound of a cold and very righteous fury. This was the 4th time in 2 short, terrible weeks that she had found Genevieve in a drug-induced daze. But never like this, never with the baby hurt. Evelyn had only been working here for a single eye-opening month, but she had already seen enough to know that something was desperately and very dangerously wrong in this beautiful and very empty house. As the first distant wail of the sirens began to cut through the quiet, rainy afternoon, she clutched the small, precious, and very still body of James tighter, rocking back and forth on the cold, hard wooden floor. "Hang on, sweetheart," she whispered, her own tears now falling onto his small, pale face. "You're not alone anymore. I'm here." As the wail of the ambulance sirens faded into the rainy afternoon, Evelyn remained frozen in the foyer, her apron soaked, her hands still shaking. She had only taken this job to pay her way through night school, a simple, quiet job, cleaning and cooking, keeping to herself. Nothing in her orientation at the grand and very empty Langston estate had prepared her for this, for the blood, for the fear, for the profound and very ugly secrets that were hidden behind the beautiful closed doors. Elise, the estate manager, a woman who always dressed as if she owned the place, was already halfway down the stairs, her high heels clicking on the marble like a series of small, sharp gunshots. "Where is Genevieve?" she had hissed, her eyes darting around frantically. "Where is the baby?" "Genevieve overdosed," Evelyn had said, her voice a flat, numb sound. "And the baby? The baby is on his way to the hospital." Elise's expression had twisted then, not in shock, not in horror, but in a cold, quick calculation. "Does Mr. Langston know?" she had demanded. Evelyn had blinked. "He's not back from his business trip in Zurich yet," she had stammered. "I didn't call him. I called 911. Elise's lips had thinned into a single hard line. "He will want to control this story," she had said. "Should not have involved the police." but Evelyn had, because someone had to. Evelyn sat in the cold, hard plastic chair of the hospital waiting room. Her apron still damp, her phone clutched tightly in both of her hands. Her own reflection in the dark, glass doors looked like a stranger. Her hair was disheveled, there was a smear of blood on her collar, and her eyes were rimmed in a deep, exhausted red. The emergency team had taken baby James into a trauma room, and the last she had heard, he was stable, but he was being kept under a clothes and very careful observation for a severe concussion and a possible skull fracture. Evelyn had been the one to sign the initial intake forms, her hand shaking as she did so, because Genevieve, the baby's mother, was still unconscious when they had arrived at the hospital. Across from her, Elise paced back and forth on the polished linoleum floor, a shark in a tailored suit. "You've made this so much worse, you know," she snapped, her voice a low, vicious hiss. Mr. Langston does not like outsiders meddling in his family's private affairs. And that had finally shut Elise up. A moment later, Evelyn's phone had buzzed. An unknown international number. She had answered it hesitantly. And a deep, powerful, and very angry voice had spoken on the other end of the line. "This is Ethan Langston. I have just landed. What has happened to my son? Where is my son?" he had barked as he pushed his way through the automatic doors of the emergency room. A terrified-looking nurse had directed him to the pediatric ICU. He had found Evelyn standing in the hallway outside the glass-walled room, watching through the window as his own, small, beautiful son slept under the gentle, rhythmic glow of the medical monitors, a tiny white bandage now stark against his dark, curly hair. He looked past her, to his son, and his hard, angry expression shattered, for a single, heartbreaking moment, into a million pieces of a raw and very real grief, they said. "They said he hit his head," he stammered, his own voice now a choked, unfamiliar sound. "They said there was a lot of blood, and his mother, ... she was." He couldn't finish the sentence. His eyes, which had been so full of a father's profound and very personal pain, slowly moved back to her. "Why you?" he asked. "Why were you the one to call?" "Because," she said, her own voice a quiet, powerful truth, "no one else did." Ethan's jaw clenched. For a long, silent moment, he said nothing. Then, his voice a low and very sincere whisper, he said, "Thank you for saving my son." Before Evelyn could respond, a nurse stepped out of the ICU room. "Mr. Langston," she said, "we have stabilized him. He is going to be okay." But the injury was very close to being much, much worse. Another hour, perhaps even less, without any medical help. She didn't have to finish the sentence. Ethan's eyes, which had been so full of a sad, quiet grief, now filled with a new and very different emotion. Cold, hard, and very dangerous. Rage, and a new, dawning, and very painful realization. He looked at Evelyn again, and this time he saw not just a maid. He saw the woman who had saved his son's life. 3 days later, the Langston estate was quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the lonely, empty silence of a house without a heart, but the tense, waiting silence of a kingdom whose rulers were at war. Genevieve had been discharged from the hospital, but she was not allowed to return home. Not yet. James was still healing, sleeping longer, beginning to eat again, but the small, purple bruises on his tiny forehead had not yet faded. Ethan stayed by his side every single night at the hospital. And Evelyn, the quiet, unassuming maid, did too, back at the house. Ethan poured a cup of black coffee into a plain, simple mug and stood at the massive marble kitchen island in a profound and very heavy silence. Evelyn had just returned from the hospital to pick up James's favorite, a well-worn blanket and his beloved stuffed toy giraffe. She hesitated in the doorway, unsure of her new place in this shifting, uncertain world. "You can come in," he said, his voice a quiet, weary sound. She stepped inside, her own movements now a little less certain, a little less sure than before. "Hey." Reviewed the security footage, Ethan said quietly, his eyes fixed on the dark, swirling liquid in his cup. "You were telling the truth. You didn't hesitate for a single second. You ran straight in." Evelyn just nodded. I didn't think she said. I just ... I just heard him cry. And something inside of me ... It couldn't ignore it. He looked at her then, really looked at her, his sharp CEO's eyes now full of a new and very raw vulnerability. You know what I hate the most? He said, his voice a low and very painful confession. I had no idea. My own wife, the mother of my only son. She has been spiraling into a darkness I couldn't even see, and I didn't see it. I thought the nannies were just exaggerating. I thought Genevieve was just overwhelmed. Ethan ran a hand over his tired face. You saved my son's life, Evelyn, he said. I will never, ever forget that. But back at the estate, not everyone welcomed Evelyn's new and very elevated presence. Elise, the ever-watchful estate manager, stood by the marble stairway, her arms crossed, watching as Evelyn carried James's blanket up to the nursery. Both women turned, startled. He was standing just behind them, his sleeves rolled up, his jaw tight with a new and very dangerous authority. Elise straightened, her professional mask slipping back into place. She tried to argue, to protest, but the look in his eyes, a look of a cold, hard, and very final authority, silenced her. As Elise turned and walked away, her own face, a mask of a new and very real humiliation, Evelyn stood frozen. She hadn't asked for this power, but it was being given to her, unearned in the eyes of some, but undeniable. Rain pattered softly against the nursery windows as Evelyn rocked James, his tiny, perfectly formed fingers curled trustingly around her pinky. The ugly bandage on his head was gone now, replaced by a small, fading scar, a silent testament to the storm they had weathered together. The color had returned to his cheeks, and he gurgled happily in his sleep, sound that was now the most beautiful music in the world. Behind her, a voice that was no longer a sharp, commanding bark, but a quiet, almost gentle sound, spoke. Ethan stepped further into the room, his gaze fixed on his sleeping son. Cries in his sleep sometimes, he said, the words a quiet, painful confession. Did you know that? Evelyn nodded. Trauma does that, she said softly, even to babies. They stood in a comfortable silence for a moment. The quiet rhythm of the rocking chair, a peaceful metronome in the grand silent house. Then he asked, almost to himself, his voice a low, wondering sound, Why do you care so much, Evelyn? She looked up, and for the first time she allowed a small, almost imperceptible crack to appear in her own carefully constructed professional armor. Ethan stared at her for a long, long time, the thick, protective layers of the powerful, ruthless CEO peeling back, one by one, in his own suddenly very humbled eyes. You're more than just a maid, aren't you? He said. Evelyn just shrugged. Titles don't matter much to me, sir. People do. He nodded slowly, as if that simple, profound truth was something new and very revolutionary to him. That night, when Evelyn went back to her own simple quarters, she found a note on her bed. Stay, it read, stay as long as you'd like. The room across from James's, it's yours now. It was signed, simply, Ethan. The front gates of the Langston estate creaked open late that Sunday afternoon. And Genevieve, a ghost from their very recent and very painful past, stepped out of a town car as if nothing had ever happened. Evelyn, who was carrying James out for some fresh air, stopped in her tracks on the garden path. The toddler, a child who should have been happy to see his own mother, squirmed at the sound of Genevieve's sharp, unfamiliar voice. And then he began to cry, a profound and very telling silence. Ethan looked away, not in shame, but in a quiet and very powerful truth. The peaceful, happy days following the trial slipped by in a calm. The Hawthorne Bennett Center grew more successful every day, quickly, becoming a beacon of hope for countless families and children suffering from emotional trauma. Olivia and Edward poured their hearts into running and expanding the center, determined to share its deeply human values throughout the community. Yet at the very height of their success, just as the Sense achievements began to attract media attention, A silent but venomous darkness emerged, set on destroying everything they had built. One quiet morning, Olivia sat in her office, drafting a new lesson plan when a panicked staff member burst in, clutching a broadsheet newspaper. But his reassurance couldn't stem the gathering storm. Within days, the rumors raced across social media. Every news outlet pounced. Fearful parents withdrew their children en masse, and the Hawthorne Bennett Center plunged into its most serious crisis yet. Then a shadowy figure emerged. Jeremy Maddox, an ambitious reporter who'd long held a grudge against Edward. The public deserves to know. His words spread like wildfire, and Olivia found herself at the center of a vicious backlash. The Sense phone lines and inbox were flooded daily with hateful accusatory messages. Olivia felt as though all her dedication had been for nothing, her heart torn by every cruel word. In desperation, Edward set out to discover who was behind the slander. One late night, after hours of online sleuthing, he received an anonymous text from an unknown number. Edward Hawthorne, don't you realize someone close to you is betraying? You check carefully every person who's ever stood by your side, past and present. Edward's pulse raced as suspicion crept over him. He launched a discreet investigation, and soon the truth surfaced. The leaker feeding Maddox was none other than Robert Stanton, Edward's longtime assistant, whom he'd fired years ago for financial fraud. Harboring a bitter grudge, Robert had sworn to destroy everything Edward had built, targeting Olivia, the one person Edward cared for most, as his weapon of revenge. Armed with this knowledge, Edward arranged a tense face-to-face meeting with Robert at a nearly deserted cafe. Locking eyes with his former aide, Edward demanded coldly, "Why are you doing this, Robert? Olivia has nothing to do with our quarrel." Edward left the meeting with a heavy heart. He knew that Olivia and the Hawthorne Bennett Center faced their toughest battle yet, not just against false accusations, but against reclaiming the public's trust. Late that night in his study, Edward took Olivia's hand, his eyes resolute. "Olivia, no matter what happens, I stand with you. We'll weather this crisis together." Olivia met his gaze, moved through, weighed down by pain and pressure. She understood that this fight wasn't merely to save the center. It was to defend their truth, their integrity, and the love they had forged. Their battle to protect the Hawthorne Bennett Center had only just begun, and Olivia and Edward were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead amid the fierce storm. Threatening to engulf the Hawthorne Bennett Center, Olivia knew she could no longer stay silent. The slanderous rumors were growing more hateful by the hour, spreading like wildfire and threatening to burn down everything they had built with sweat, tears, and devoted hearts. In one of the tensest moments, Edward squeezed Olivia's hand, his eyes full of both worry and resolve. Olivia looked deep into his eyes, feeling the trust and courage he was placing in her. She nodded, determined to face the gathering storm head-on. A few days later, a packed press conference was held in the main auditorium of the Hawthorne Bennett Center. Hundreds of journalists and media crews arrived early. They're curious, skeptical gazes fixed on Olivia as she stepped up to the podium. She stood tall, her confidence and calm shining through in an almost startling way. At the back of the room, Edward watched quietly, his heart pounding, but his faith in Olivia never wavered. Olivia took a deep breath and began, her clear voice echoing through the hall. "Today I stand before you not to apologize or make excuses, but to share a truth I have never had the chance to tell. I was born and raised in a poor family in suburban Atlanta. My parents died when I was very young, and I spent my childhood moving through multiple foster homes. Throughout those years, I endured neglect, loneliness, and the pain of abandonment." Her eyes glistened, but remained steadfast. She continued, her tone both honest and moving. "It was those bitter experiences that taught me to understand deeply the pain of children suffering from psychological wounds. I chose to become a teacher, not for fame or gain, but because I wanted to spare other children from the suffering I knew so well. I have never hidden or misrepresented anything about my past." Olivia scanned the rows of cameras, her voice growing stronger and more resolute. "I categorically deny the malicious allegations that I exploited Edward Hawthorne's kindness and trust. I came into his family with a sincere heart, and I stand here today because I believe in the truth." Every effort and ounce of dedication I have poured into this center comes from genuine love for Lucas, Liam, and the hundreds of children we have helped." The room fell silent, broken only by the sound of camera shutters and hushed whispers. Suddenly, a woman in the front row stood up, Elizabeth Morgan, the mother of one of the children Olivia had rescued from severe depression. Mrs. Morgan spoke. With heartfelt emotion, her voice cracking with gratitude, "I want everyone here to hear this. My daughter fell into a deep psychological crisis after her father's death. No other center would take her in. No one could help her except Miss Olivia Bennett. She saved my daughter's life and brought hope back to our family. I do not believe those vicious lies." Her sincere testimony washed over the auditorium like a wave. Then a father rose to share his own story of a son pulled back from the brink of despair thanks to Olivia's care. One by one, parents and children, whom Olivia had helped, spoke up, affirming her dedication, compassion, and integrity. Their heartfelt words transformed the atmosphere. Doubtful glances gave way to understanding and empathy. Edward saw in Olivia's eyes the fierce conviction and extraordinary courage that had drawn him to her in the first place. Not long after that emotional press conference, Edward and Olivia enlisted the help of a seasoned private investigator to uncover the source of the smears. Their search revealed a shocking truth. The mastermind behind the campaign of defamation was Patrick Hamilton, a former business partner of Edward's. Patrick had hired Jeremy Maddox to write the lurid articles and enlisted Robert Stanton, nursing old grudges, too. Spread lies intended to destroy Edward's reputation and sabotage the center. Armed with this evidence, Edward confronted Patrick in his opulent office. Looking him in the eye, Edward demanded, "Why are you doing this, Patrick? Why target Olivia and our center? We've never wronged you." Edward shook his head firmly. "You're wrong, Patrick. You think lies and envy can destroy us? The truth will always prevail." Within days, the evidence was made public. The media retracted the false stories. Patrick Hamilton and his accomplices faced legal consequences, and Olivia and the Hawthorne Bennett Center were fully vindicated. In the aftermath of the crisis, the center not only regained its standing, but earned even deeper trust from the community. Standing side by side, Edward and Olivia found their bond and their commitment to each other stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Edward took Olivia's hand and softly said, "We've weathered everything together. Thank you for never giving up." She smiled, her eyes warm. "We succeeded because we believed in each other." And so, they realized that the very storms they endured had forged their love and resolve anew. The Hawthorne Bennett Center emerged not only as a symbol of healing, but as a testament to the power of courage, faith, and genuine love. When the fiercest waves of the recent crisis finally receded, a gentle calm returned to the Hawthorne Bennett Center. Olivia and Edward resumed nurturing new plans, pouring unprecedented passion into healing the children's wounds. Yet, just as everything seemed back on track, Olivia received news that made her heart lurch once more. Olivia sat quietly in her office, organizing files for the new arrivals. Suddenly, her phone rang. When she answered, the voice on the other end was both unfamiliar and achingly familiar. "Olivia, you might not recognize my voice, but it's me." "Mom, it's Julia." Olivia's heart stopped. She barely drew a breath, her eyes widening as painful childhood memories flooded back. All her life she had believed her parents were dead. Now, the surprising claim that Julia was her mother shattered her world. A few days later, Olivia, trembling with anxiety, agreed to meet her birth parents at a small, quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. When she arrived, she immediately spotted two elderly figures huddled in a corner booth. The man's hair was snowy white, his eyes heavy with regret. The woman Julia looked at Olivia with tears brimming, her expression equal parts hope and fear. Olivia seated herself slowly, her heart aching, though her face remained composed. Her voice trembled, yet sounded clear. "Why are you coming to me now?" Her father, James Bennett, bowed his head in shame. "We don't deserve your forgiveness, but you deserve the truth. We made the greatest mistake of our lives when we abandoned you. We were too poor and desperate then, afraid we couldn't raise you and would only doom your life to hardship. Julia hurried to continue, tears falling freely. Not a single day went by that I didn't think of you or regret our choice. I only dreamed of seeing you again just once, to tell you how sorry I am. Olivia sat in silence, her eyes brimming with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to run from that table forever. Another part longed to understand why they had done it. Finally, she spoke, her tone gentle, but charged with pain. Do you know how I felt growing up? I wondered every day why I wasn't worthy of love, why I was abandoned. That question became my driving force. I spent my life helping children in similar situations. But standing here now, I realize I still haven't fully healed my own wound. Julia broke down in sobs, grasping Olivia's hand. I know I have no right to ask for your pardon quickly, but please give us a chance to make amends for our past. Their meeting ended in suffocating silence. Olivia left the cafe feeling hollow and contemplative. At home, Edward immediately sensed her distress. Gently taking her hand, he said, Olivia, sometimes in order to keep healing others, we must first face and heal ourselves. Whatever you decide, I'm here with you. In the days that followed, Olivia reflected deeply. She realized forgiveness wasn't just a gift to her parents, it was a gift to herself, a way to step out of the shadows of her past. She arranged to meet her parents again, this time at the Hawthorne Bennett Center, where many children watched her with curious, empathetic eyes. But today, I choose to forgive so that I can heal. I'm willing to open my heart so we can begin to rebuild our relationship, even though it will be difficult. James and Julia wept with relief and shame, wrapping Olivia in a long overdue embrace. The children at the center witnessed this moment, a powerful lesson in compassion, forgiveness, and the true strength of healing. Overcome with joy, Olivia realized her decision to forgive not only healed her own heart, but also inspired and empowered every child in her care. From that day on, James and Julia Bennett became devoted volunteers at the center. Every day, they worked to atone for their mistake. Demonstrating the transformative power of forgiveness, she smiled and replied softly, I learned that only by facing and forgiving the past can we truly step into a brighter, more meaningful future. Looking out the window at the gentle sunset, Olivia knew her heart's wound had finally begun to heal, opening a new chapter of hope and happiness. Not just for herself, but for everyone she loves and cares for at the Hawthorne Bennett Center. After her courageous decision to face and forgive her birth parents, Olivia seemed to step into a new chapter of her life, her spirit lighter and stronger than ever. The Hawthorne Bennett Center, long a second home to countless children, now flourished even more. Inspired by the moving story of Olivia's journey with its deep commitment to healing and genuine compassion, the center became a beacon of positive change in the community. Major universities across the country began to take notice of Olivia's unique educational approach, one that emphasized psychological healing and unlocking the inner strengths of children who had nearly lost their faith in life. The impact of the Hawthorne Bennett model quickly spread beyond its original scope. One bright morning, Olivia received a special invitation from Harvard University, asking her to speak about her distinctive psychological education methods and share her hands-on experience in healing inspiration with thousands of top students. Joining her on this special trip was Belle Harris, once Olivia's very first student and a young woman rescued from the darkness of her own past. Now grown into a confident, strong advocate, Belle had become Olivia's right hand, standing at the... Olivia spoke first, her voice gentle yet resonant throughout the hall. Dear students, you have likely heard many theories of education and psychology, but I'm here to share the most practical lesson I learned from my own painful experiences. To truly help a child heal from trauma, you must see them with your heart, not just your mind. Belle followed with confident emotion. I was once a child the world turned away from, but because someone truly saw me, understood me, and chose to stay, I found light in my life. That person was Miss Olivia Bennett. Today, I stand not as a victim of circumstance, but as a survivor, someone ready to bring positive change to others. Their heartfelt words moved the entire audience. One by one, Students and faculty asked questions, and Olivia answered each with enthusiasm, depth, and sincerity. The event was a resounding success, swiftly heralded in the press and spreading nationwide. After the lecture, Olivia and Edward received collaboration requests from many prestigious institutions: Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Columbia. Eager to learn the Hawthorne-Bennett model, their psychoeducational approach became a phenomenon among professionals, sparking a new movement in child psychology that brought great hope to society. With Edward's strong support and Olivia's real-world experience, the Hawthorne-Bennett Center rapidly expanded, opening dozens of branches across the states. Each new location became a sanctuary for countless children struggling with severe emotional challenges. The Center's extraordinary success fueled envy among some old adversaries. But this time, Olivia and Edward stood stronger than ever. Their former critics dared not attack openly. They could only mutter their discontent in the shadows. Then one day, Patrick Hamilton, the man behind the Center's greatest crisis, requested a private meeting with Edward, bearing a letter of apology and heartfelt regret. "I was wrong, Edward. What I thought was victory was actually blind jealousy. Watching you succeed, I realized what I destroyed was exactly what society needs most. Please forgive me, you and Olivia." Edward regarded Patrick with stern yet compassionate eyes. "I never saw you as an enemy, Patrick. What Olivia and I do is always about building up, never tearing down. Knowing you understand that is success. Enough for me." Patrick bowed his head and left silently. Later, Edward told Olivia about the meeting. She smiled softly, her voice warm and gentle. "We don't need revenge, Edward. Our greatest achievement is the healing and positive change we bring to our community." Before long, Olivia and Belle were invited to speak at the International Conference on Child Psychology in Geneva, Switzerland. Standing before thousands of global experts, Olivia once again showcased the Hawthorne-Bennett Center's powerful healing, a story drawn from her own life. Edward accompanied Olivia on every trip, remaining her quiet but steadfast support. With each passing day, their bond deepened and strengthened. Unbreakable by any challenge, every evening after the center had quieted down, Olivia would sit by the window, pride and emotion shining in her eyes. She reflected on the long journey she had traveled. Edward would gently wrap his arms around her from behind and whisper, "You've done something extraordinary, Olivia. Seeing these children healed and happy, I know this is exactly what we've been striving for." Olivia would turn to him with a tender smile and reply, "We accomplished it together, Edward. You know what? This is just the beginning. I believe we will bring even more wonderful things into the world." Together, they looked toward the future, confident that nothing could stand in the way of the love, faith, compassion they were spreading across the globe. The success of the Hawthorne-Bennett Center continued to radiate far and wide. But for Edward, the greatest accomplishment wasn't measured by his stirring speeches, the number of new centers opened, or the nationwide acclaim. His true triumph was Olivia's radiant smile each morning as she entered the center. Lucas and Liam's carefree laughter as they played in the backyard, and the peaceful evenings the family spent gathered together. Edward realized that he and Olivia were now ready to take the next most important step to build a real home. A home they both deserved after everything they had endured. Quietly, he planned a very special evening. Nothing flashy or extravagant, just simple and sincere, just like the love he felt for Olivia. As the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky deep red, Edward led Olivia out to the small garden behind the center, the very spot where her first appearance had forever changed his life and those of his two boys. Olivia walked slowly, her eyes bright with curiosity. She came to an abrupt stop when she saw what lay before her. A small table adorned with pure white roses, the soft glow of candlelight, and an atmosphere brimming with warmth and serenity. Taking her hand gently, Edward's voice trembled with emotion as he spoke. "Olivia, from the moment you walked into my life and into Lucas's and Liam's, I knew I had found life's greatest gift. You're not only a strong, talented woman, you're the light that guided us through our darkest days. I never believed I'd love or be happy again until I met you." Tears glistened in Olivia's eyes as she returned his gaze with a tender smile. "Edward, I feel the same. You and the boys have taught me how to open my heart, how to trust and love again, things I thought I'd lost forever." Slowly, Edward knelt on one knee and reached into his jacket pocket to reveal a small box. Inside lay a diamond ring, simple yet profoundly meaningful, its facets catching the candlelight. With heartfelt sincerity, he asked, "Olivia Bennet, will you marry me, build a home with me, care for Lucas and Liam, and continue spreading healing throughout the world?" Happy tears streamed down Olivia's face. She leaned forward to embrace him and whispered with all her heart, "Yes, Edward, there's nothing I want more than to spend my life with you and with the boys." That moment became an unforgettable milestone. For them both, word of their engagement spread quickly through the center, and Lucas and Liam erupted in boundless joy. The two boys eagerly helped with every little detail for the wedding day. Thrilled at the thought of having Mom Olivia by their side forever, their wedding took place in a warm, intimate ceremony at the center, where they had weathered so much. There was no grand extravagance, only the presence of beloved family and friends, and the children whose happiness meant everything. Dressed in their finest, Lucas and Liam flanked Edward at the altar. As Olivia entered in her pure white gown, Edward was moved to speechlessness by her beauty. The boys ran to her, wrapping her in a joyous embrace as they cried out in unison, "Mom, Olivia, we love you." Olivia knelt to hug them, tears of genuine happiness falling freely. For she had finally found the complete family she had always longed for. As they exchanged vows amid applause and heartfelt smiles, Helen, the housekeeper, watched with tears in her eyes and murmured softly to herself, "At last, happiness has truly returned to this home." Later, at the small reception, Olivia and Edward shared with their closest loved ones the profound message they'd gained through their journey. Healing never ends. It's a journey of love, perseverance, and the courage to overcome our wounds and live a meaningful life. And that journey is only complete when we open our hearts, forgive, and believe in the power of love. The party hummed with laughter and conversation, but long after the guests had departed, Edward and Olivia stood on the porch beneath a blanket of stars. Edward squeezed her hand and whispered, "You were right, Olivia. Life will always bring challenges, but as long as we face them together, every wound can be healed." Leaning her head on his shoulder, Olivia smiled and replied, "That's the greatest miracle we've found, Edward. A true home where love, perseverance, and healing walk hand in hand." They stood there in perfect peace, knowing their journey was far from over, but confident that together they could face anything. From a distance, Lucas and Liam played under the moonlight, their laughter echoing through the quiet night, warming the air around them. Olivia watched her sons and softly said, "Edward, I understand now more than ever. Healing has no final destination, but as long as we love and persevere, the journey is always worth it." Edward returned her smile. Now we have each other to walk that journey forever. Under the star-filled sky, they realized this was not an ending, but the most beautiful new beginning, a lifetime of happiness and meaning that they would continue. Together, always. The story of Olivia and Edward shows us that healing is a journey without end, a journey of love, of courage, and of a profound perseverance that can transform our deepest wounds into a richer, more meaningful life. What do you think of their story, and which moment touched your heart the most? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. If you found this story inspiring and heartfelt, don't forget to hit like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful tales. Thank you for joining us. May you always have a strong heart filled with love.